Hi! I've been reading a lot of books lately, particularly book ones in new series. So I can't do a proper series review, so I decided to lump them all together. I just did one on a few adult series, and now I'm going to do some YA series. So they're all paranormal, supernatural, and I'm going to talk about 4 of them. So if you see this video is really long and you don't want to watch it all, I'm talking about 4 different series. So you can skip to a particular one if you want. And also it's going to be spoiler free, so I'm going to try to keep it spoiler free. Okay, so the first book I'm going to talk about is called Throne of Glass, and that is the Throne of Glass series. It's the first book by Sarah J. Maas. Now I have to let you know as well that there's 4 little prequel kind of novellas that go with this, that explain kind of like the history of the main character. I didn't bother reading them, but you can check them out too if you want. I think you have to pay for each one, which is kind of a turn off. And the second book is just out in 2013. There's no specific information yet. Okay, so this story, it's a lot like Poison Study by Marie B. Snyder, or the first book in his Fair Assassin series. Poison Study was brilliant. The Fair Assassin was only okay, but it reminds me of those. It's about a girl, and she's 18, and her name, you can check out the spelling, I think it's pronounced as Selena. She was, at the very beginning, she's kind of locked up in this like slave camp, people who are really kind of punished, and she was this fearsome assassin, strange for such a young girl, and they bring her out, and the prince asks her to be his champion in this kind of duel, and all these like royal people will have a champion and make them all fight out, and the winner will become the king's main assassin. And she decides to take him up on the offer and compete, and then all the different kind of champions start getting killed, not just in the fighting between each other, but like by some mystery murderer, and she has to figure out what happens. And then she kind of starts to bond with a few people as well, like the prince and her kind of trainer. So it has an interesting enough story. Apparently it's like 10 years in the making. The author's been writing it for 10 years. You wouldn't really think that, because it's not amazing, but it's good enough. One of my problems was I couldn't get a grasp on the protagonist. Like, she was put through a year in these like slave salt mines, like whipped and tortured and everything, and she, like, since 8 years old she was trained to be a killer. So like I wanted her to be this like really cunning, intelligent, brave and quiet character, like she kind of takes a step back and like cleverly like watches what's going on around her and stuff. But the character in this Selena, she's very opinionated and loudmouthed and immature at times, and she's also quite vain. Like, she spent like an hour in front of the mirror looking at herself and her pretty dress and her hair, and so she turned out a lot different than what I expected and kind of wanted of her. And I didn't like these aspects of her personality at the beginning, which made it kind of difficult to like her, or to sympathize with her. I just didn't feel like these qualities in a person fit in with her reputation of this brutal assassin. She's kind of one of those rebellious types. Maybe that's more of her character. So yeah, it took me a while to get into her, but I kind of get her a bit more now. I liked all the supporting characters as well. As usual, I would have preferred one narrator, because the narration kind of moves. So we have Selena doing, narrating the majority of the book. It's in third person. In the odd time, we'll have about 4 or 5 other people. So I would have preferred it with just the one person. I'm not sure what to think about the romance in this book. Maybe the author just wants to develop it, so you don't get something straight away, which is nice for a change, I suppose, and you just have to see in the second book where it goes. So yeah, I'm not really sure about her feelings for each person yet, but I guess it's just a bit of a taster in this book. One thing which I say very rarely, is that this book was too long. It dragged a lot in the middle. So I do think the author could have, nipped it a little bit. And it was a good effort though. I will be interested to see how things go in the next book, and so I will be reading the next book. So it's a good book. It's not a fantastic book, but it's good, so I would recommend it. Okay, the second book I'm going to talk about is called Touching Smoke in the Touch series by Airicka. So this book is about a girl called Fallon, and she's been kind of on the move with her mother her whole life. She's 16, and they've just been travelling from place to place. Her mother she always wants to stay on the move, and Fallon doesn't know why. And then at the beginning of this book, she kind of figures out that her mother's been on the run with her because this crazy person is after her. She doesn't know why, she doesn't know who. She just knows these bad guys are after her that shoot fire out of their hands, and for some reason they want Fallon. And then this other guy called Isaiah is following her, but he says he wants to protect her. So she's just very confused at the beginning. Like, her mother wants to keep her safe and get her away from Isaiah, but Isaiah's like, I just want to protect you, and so all that kind of drama. So it had great kind of mystery and tension at the beginning, and I loved that kind of loving, complicated relationship she had with her mother. There's a little bit of fault issues going on, and I just liked the story, and I liked that Fallon's specialness was causing all this, and we didn't really know what it was, and it felt a lot different to other YAs. And then we get to the other 3/4 of the book, which felt like all the bad YAs. I hate any mention of soulmates. I just think it's very lazy of an author. Like, they don't really put any work in, to having characters connect or fall in love. It's just all explained away with it's biological. And I didn't like the direction of the plot either. Like, there's a moment in the book where Fallon laughs at the clichéness of having vampires or werewolves come after her, saying, oh, it's been done too much. I actually would have preferred if one of these cliches was used rather than what was actually used. I mean, just because the author doesn't repeat a premise doesn't make her different or original. I mean, it's all just the same type of characters in a slightly different world. I thought Isaiah was likeable at the beginning when he was mysterious, and I thought he was a lot older, and I thought he had a proper good reason for wanting to protect Fallon. And then he just became the typical broody, overprotective kind of teenage guy. And then Fallon, I just felt like she was immature and annoying at times. Hi, as you can see, it's a different day. My battery ran out yesterday in the middle of that review, so I'm just going to continue now with the Touch of Smoke book. We didn't get answers as quickly as I would have liked. We had the villain just kind of talking around things and hinting at things, which kind of bugged me. And when the characters were finally caught, the momentum of the book kind of slowed down, and it just became a little bit dull. So this book, like, I liked it at the beginning, but I'm not sure I'm going to read the next book in it. Okay, so the next book I'm talking about is called The Deepest Cut by J.A. Templeton, and it's in the MacKinnon Curse series, book 1. So this is about a girl called Riley, and she's American, and she moves to Scotland after a year after her mother was killed in a car crash, and she was with her in the car, so she kind of blames herself. And she moves there with her father and her brother, and she kind of has issues, and she's a cutter, she self-harms, and she's been seeing ghosts, so she can see ghosts, and when she goes to Scotland she meets this ghost called Ian, who sees her about to cut herself, and then this other kind of evil ghost comes, and they kind of work together to sort that out. So if you're thinking this sounds very similar to the Mediator series in Meg Cabot, you're right. So, when I first heard the plot, I thought that. But I like the differences in this, and that it was a bit darker, because the Meg Cabot series is quite youngish, very young teen. But this, she has Riley, the main character, has a lot of issues. She self-harms. She just lost her mother. It has a spooky background, in Scotland, near a castle, and I liked all those changes. And I really liked the book at the beginning, and I couldn't wait to meet this ghost, Ian. I just imagined him as a very, very ordinary, just Scottish boy. Those sometimes in books you meet these ghosts, and they're just kind of sweet and funny, and they're just normal but dead. And then we meet Ian, and he's just an exact copy of Jesse from the Mediator series, that ghost. just swap Spanish for Scottish and they're identical. I mean, down to the clothes they wear, they're identical. So this just really frustrated and disappointed me because I was hoping for something a little bit different. And the second fault of the series would be the cheesy romance in it. Like, you know, the characters fall in love so quickly, and you know, Riley puts her trust in Ian so quickly, and I would have preferred a bit more development. I liked the dynamic between Riley and her brother, and you know, the issues she has to deal with. The ending was a little bit cheesy, but I will check out the next book, you know, eventually. I'm not rushing out to get it, but I will eventually, you know, check that out. If you like the premise of this book, you know, a girl seeing ghosts and kind of falling for a ghost, I'd suggest check out the Mediator series of Meg Cabot. It does have a younger feel, but I do think it's done a bit better. Okay, so the final book I'm talking about today is called Angelfall, and it's the first book in a series called Penryn and the End of Days, and it's by Susan E. or Susan A. So this is about a girl called Penryn, and it's kind of dystopian, or you know, set in kind of like a post-apocalyptic type world, and where the world's been kind of ruined by these brutal, savage angels. And usually I hate anything to do with angels because any book I've read with that I just did not like, just didn't work out well for me. But thankfully this one I really enjoy it. So our main character Penryn, at the beginning, her sister's kidnapped by these angels and she sees this other angel and he's kind of injured, so she says she would, you know, help him if he helps her get the sister back. So they kind of have to work together in this very brutal, kind of savage world, and I thought it was brilliant. I finished this book in one morning while I was sick in bed, so I just read this book in one morning and I could not put it down. It's a slow burn book, but I love that kind of development. It worked really well in this. I love the dynamics between, you know, the main character Penryn and the angel Raffi. They had a really interesting relationship, and Raffi, he turned out a lot more normal than you think he is, so I really liked his character. Sometimes I wished Penryn didn't have a sister to worry about, because sometimes that can get really old in books, you know, they're constantly just worried about the sister and you kind of want them to focus on themselves a bit more. It's a really harsh post-apocalyptic world, plenty of creepy and stark descriptions. There's some really like creepy, like horrible scenes in there too. So like the author doesn't shy away from this like really scary world. There isn't too much focus on the romance, which I really appreciated, and you know, I was kept interested and excited the whole way through. Also, when I was reading it, I didn't know there was a second book. I just thought it was a standalone, so when I came to the end I was like, what? That can't be the very end. I was really kind of angry, but then I figured out that there is a second book, so thankfully it continues on and I can't wait for that. I assume it'll be out sometime next year. So it wasn't the most satisfying ending, but I mean, I won't spoil what I want to happen in the next book, but I think a lot of fans, I hope the author pleases the fans what we do want to happen in the next book. But yeah, I definitely recommend this one. I mean, out of all of them, it would be my favourite. I really enjoyed it, surprisingly, and the next best one would probably be Throne of Glass, and then The Deepest Cut, and the last one would be Touch of Smoke. So they're just 4 YAs I've read recently in new series, and I'll check out the second book in some of them and not in others. I'd love to know what you think, if you read any of them or they sound like any type of book you would like to read. Just let me know. And if you have any good YA kind of series to recommend, you know, comment below as well. So thank you very much for watching and happy reading.